About 6 weeks ago, a company called Anthropic built an AI that was so dangerous, they just flat out refused to release it to the public. You probably watched that whole story unfold online. Millions of people did. But here's what nobody told you. Just 1 week later, OpenAI quietly did the exact same thing. We're talking about a completely different company, a different AI, and honestly, a vastly different kind of danger. Now, usually when we talk about a dangerous AI, our minds jump straight to hacking, right? But let's be absolutely clear up front. This threat has literally nothing to do with leaked emails, stolen passwords, or cybersecurity. The risk here is entirely biological. A disease. Engineered. OpenAI actually restricted this model because it's so incredibly good at interpreting genomic data that, while in the wrong hands, it could theoretically help develop dangerous biological agents. They're calling this model GPT-Rosalind, and OpenAI has decided that you cannot have it. So, in this explainer, we're going to dive into exactly what this AI does, the wild history behind its name, and why the absolute top biosecurity scientists in the world are so deeply concerned. Section 1. The Kept Secret. Section 2. The Franklin Legacy. So we're dealing with a model that can reason about pathogen biology and suggest molecular tweaks at a scale we've literally never seen before. But before we look at those raw capabilities, we really have to talk about the name. Rosalind Franklin. She was a brilliant British chemist, and her diffraction imaging of DNA is what actually revealed the double helix structure. That is the very foundation of all modern molecular biology. But she never got the credit. The 1962 Nobel Prize went to Watson, Crick, and Wilkins, and her name was basically erased from one of science's greatest discoveries. By naming their absolute most powerful biology AI after her, OpenAI is honoring her legacy. 64 years late. But it's more than just an homage. Franklin spent her entire life revealing the hidden structures of living things, making the invisible visible. GPT-Rosalind does exactly that, just at a scale she never could have imagined. Section 3. Supercharging biology. Okay, to put things into perspective, traditional drug development usually takes somewhere between 10 to 15 years from discovery to getting regulatory approval. GPT-Rosalind is built to compress that entire timeline into moments. It chews through massive volumes of scientific literature, queries complex biological databases, and suggests brand new experimental pathways, all in one single interface. Just look at the Big Bench scores. It's a massive bioinformatics benchmark, and the numbers really tell the story here. GPT-Rosalind scored a 0.751. That significantly beats out GPT 5.4 at 0.732, and it just completely crushes Gemini 3.1 Pro, which sits at 0.550. So it's not just the best AI for biology, it beats every other AI out there by a significant margin. It is the undisputed leader in this space. And to truly grasp the gravity of this, you just have to look at who's using it right now. OpenAI is currently working with Los Alamos National Laboratory on AI-guided protein and catalyst design. Just let that sink in for a second. The Nuclear Weapons Research Facility, the exact same one responsible for building the atomic bomb, is now using this AI to design proteins. And the scientific community is definitely reacting. In fact, they published a massive warning in the Science Journal. Over 100 elite scientists from heavy-hitting institutions like Johns Hopkins, Oxford, Columbia, and Stanford explicitly wrote, "We call for tiered access restrictions on biological data that AI systems can reach." 100 of the world's leading minds writing in the most prestigious journal, warning us specifically about models exactly like this one. Section 4. The threat of uplift. And that brings us right to the dark side of this technology. The real reason this door is staying locked. See, that incredible medical potential we just talked about? Well, it works in reverse. An AI capable of suggesting molecular modifications to stop a virus is theoretically perfectly capable of suggesting modifications to make a virus unstoppable. It's the exact same underlying capability. The tool helps engineer solutions, right? But it doesn't inherently care if that solution is a cure or a weapon. Understanding the language these researchers use is absolutely crucial here. Let's translate some of this dense biosecurity jargon into plain English. Uplift basically means the AI lowers the technical barrier, making it easier for someone to do something dangerous that they just couldn't pull off on their own. And gain of function refers to modifying a pathogen to make it more transmissible or virulent. That's one of the most sensitive areas in all of biological research. So researchers are terrified because if you combine a model that's this smart at pathogen biology with poor access controls, you could theoretically give bad actors massive uplift. Now, of course, OpenAI has stated that GPT-Rosalind incorporates safety training to refuse dangerous requests. But here's the massive, unsolved problem that's literally keeping researchers up at night. Is it guaranteed? Whether a model's stated reasoning actually matches what's going on under the hood is still an open question in AI. The safety training might say no, but nobody can guarantee the AI will successfully refuse every single clever, creative rephrasing of a dangerous request every single time. Section 5, the velvet rope. So how on earth do you manage a tool that's this sharp? Well, OpenAI's solution is basically a highly restricted, trusted access program. It's kept behind a velvet rope. It's only available to heavily vetted organizations that can prove they're working to improve human health outcomes, all under extremely rigorous security controls. We're talking launch partners like Amgen, Moderna, Thermo Fisher, NVIDIA. But pay special attention to fourth Eon biosecurity. They're actually using GPT-Rosalind specifically to build AI-native screening systems that analyze DNA sequences to flag potentially dangerous orders. So the very same AI that could theoretically help engineer a pathogen is actively being used to detect them. But as you might expect, critics are heavily scrutinizing this approach. They argue that gating is a deployment control, not a capability control. The underlying threat still entirely exists because the model itself is capable. OpenAI locking it down is great for today, sure, but the real biosecurity test is going to come when comparable open-weight models become available. Models that literally anyone can download and run on their own hardware without ever having to ask a corporation for permission. Plus, there is a massive international dilemma here. As one expert pointed out in Time magazine, defining who counts as a legitimate researcher gets significantly harder outside the United States. Different countries have vastly different laws, completely different oversight structures, and totally different incentives. That velvet rope, it only really works if it covers the entire globe. And right now, it simply does not. So let's zoom out a bit and look at exactly where we find ourselves. 6 weeks ago, Claude Mythos was restricted because it could theoretically break into banks, hospitals, and power grids. Today, GPT-Rosalind is restricted because it understands the literal molecular structure of what keeps you alive. Both of these models exist right now. Both are dangerous, and both are sitting in highly restricted server rooms accessible only to people on a VIP list that, well, you and I are not on. We are genuinely living through the very first moment in history where the tools being built are so incredibly powerful that the people building them are actually afraid to hand them out. And they aren't afraid of market competition. They aren't just afraid of government regulation. They are deeply afraid of what happens when the wrong person gets access. The era of dangerous AI being kept from you has officially begun. So I really want to leave you with a question to answer right now down below. Type trust in the comments if you believe these companies are making the right call by gatekeeping this technology and keeping it away from the public. Or type too late if you think the open source capability is already out there and this kind of danger just cannot be contained. Share this explainer with someone who still thinks AI is just about fun chatbots. And be sure to subscribe so you never miss out as we continue to break down the most fascinating topics shaping our future. Catch you on the next one.